Hello there, my very good friends. I'm Andy Murray. This is Michael Hamflett. I'm telling you his name because he forgot his this morning.
I don't know.
Crazy guy fell out of his pocket while he was running. What's going on there?
Damn, yeah, that really happened.
We are here to give you something a little bit different. We're doing an instant reaction to the Hurt Syndicate.
Yes.
Winning the AEW World Tag Team titles because we're pretty blown away by this kind of demonstration of power against a team in Private Party whose reign hadn't really clicked, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. So, obviously, if you're watching this, I'm warning you about a spoiler you've already seen. But the Hurt Syndicate, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley did beat Quen and Zay, Private Party, for the AEW Tag Team titles last night on Dynamite. Layout-wise, it was very atypical of the average AEW back-and-forth match, right? It was not completely one-sided pounding with the Hurt Syndicate swinging the hammer. There was just enough little bits and pieces in there from Private Party to make them not look like they were just completely, blown away and disregarded. It wasn't like a 2-minute squash. I think it ran about 9 minutes so far. But for me, it was a really emphatic exclamation mark and a strong underline and a bold font over what has been a completely successful AEW so far. And after this, I just kind of think, is this like a new version of the Road Warriors? Like, what's going on here? This is tremendous.
Yeah, like from the moment Shelton Benjamin was introduced as a guy, maybe not like star-wise on Bobby Lashley's level, but physically on Bobby Lashley's level, because we've seen this before, it's the reality of WWE wrestlers that just look bigger outside of WWE. This is historically true. The same as works in reverse as well. Often when people go up to WWE, like, hang on, wasn't he bigger before he got there? There's this strange, like, production trick, size scale, who knows, but whatever it is, when Shelton Benjamin arrived in AEW, immediately they were able to treat him as a big guy rather than like a mid-sized technical aerialist that he'd been elsewhere in his career. So when Bobby Lashley lands with him as a tag team, that was it. Like we were making the comparison a few weeks ago to the Road Warriors, to the Powers of Pain, to Demolition, the Miracle Violence Connection, all these big monster tag teams that ultimately can just run roughshod. The tag team title change last night felt inevitable. And that's not to be like overly critical of Private Party as wrestlers, but absolutely critical of the booking of Private Party. They felt like paper champions, like kind of guys that had sort of looked their way into the position out of tenure more than anything else, because, there was a 2019 match with the Young Bucks that sort of seemed to cement them as part of a thriving tag division, but 5 years is a long time and things change within every company as they did in AEW and especially in the tag division, unfortunately. And by the time they won the belts, A, it seemed a little bit too little too late, B, it seemed too rushed for where Private Party were in the hierarchy, and C, the Hurt Syndicate were looming and on the horizon and immediately made their intent clear to win titles, checks and championships.
And hurt people.
And hurt people was what MVP said they were there to do, and this is such a great and immediate realisation of that. It is not a pivot, not a sort of acknowledgement of bad booking. It's a way to do good booking to repair bad. Private Party, as you pointed out, didn't lose in 30 seconds, made a bit of a fist of it, but you sense there might be a rematch down the line where they will probably lose again. And maybe there is something good to come from this. If you remember, before they beat the Bucks, there were teasers that they might split. It was kind of, it wasn't win or bust like out loud, but there was a sense that if they don't win here, this could be it for Private Party. Maybe
that was the stipulation. It was career versus title.
That's right. So maybe by losing again to the Hurt Syndicate, they, as characters, can realise that this reign was a bit of a busted flush, and maybe things aren't right in the world of Private Party. And it's not like this has to be the end of the line, but for the title reign, it absolutely did. Yeah,
absolutely. I think first of all, 100% the right move last night. I think Private Party were failed, not even in the title change, not even in the title reign, but in the build.
Yeah.
I felt that if you were going to do like, we were the first tag team signed and the Young Bucks, and like tell that story, like theoretically it's a good story. It's classic pro wrestling. It's two teams that had been kind of attached together and they've wrestled each other in the first year.
Yeah,
on like one of the
laws.
Yeah, really early Dynamite. So something that you need to make stuff out of. But it felt like they sped ran the entire story in about what should have been like a 3 or 4 month rise. We're fighting our way to these titles. It was like, I just got a title shot suddenly. Clicked the fingers, they had the match. And then when I watched the title change match, I was like, okay. Right, okay, so the story to get here wasn't particularly satisfying, but you know what, that was a really good match, and it feels like a nice move and all this stuff, so I can kind of forgive what came before being a bit rushed. And then the reign, it just became abundantly clear that AEW had no real ideas for them as champion. And they, pardon the terrible pun, but it just, that's not even a pun. Falling to pieces is not a pun. It's too early.
I thought you were going to say the party's over, but they weren't.
There you go. See, if I had any skill as a wordsmith, that's what I would say. But yeah, it didn't work out. And then kind of on the other side of the division, when the Hurt Syndicate entered the picture with the segment where they poured away the shots and all this stuff, I was like...
Smash the club up.
Yeah, they destroyed the club. The club's not opening again. Yeah. It was abundantly clear in that segment to me. It was like, okay, well, this is an act that they've been getting right from day one, and here's one that they just haven't had any good creative for since they became champions. From that moment, I was kind of like, let's do the title change. And something that really stood out to me in the matches, and I really appreciate that they did this, because this is an era of sugar rushes. This is an era where wrestlers in any company in the world will sell a limb for a minute, forget about it, and continue with the match. This is a world where it's more, pop, 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 bang, 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 bang. Sometimes that is great. The opening segment on Dynamite I thought was really effective. Sometimes you get a bit burned out by it, right? But in this match, they really let that table bump resonate. Like, they really sold that thing. And, praising selling shouldn't be a thing. This should happen all of the time in every wrestling company. But it really stood out, because when Zay got thrown through that table and destroyed, not only did they have Quen God, like agonizing over his partner, stressing over his health. They had the Hurt Business just completely rip him away and go, no. Hurt Syndicate, sorry. They're not in business anymore. They're in syndication. And then when Zay, what's going on? And then when Zay kind of battled back and fought back and all this stuff, shows that defiance, but then he finally gets hit by the spear, and it's like, well, obviously you're dead because of the impact from the table earlier on. It's just a really good, well-structured match, and I think, like, if you go back to the rollout of this stable from MVP arriving, and I do think he's probably, Paul Heyman, yes, make the case, but a minimum a top 2 manager in American wrestling today, MVP, and then the addition of Shelton and Bobby's match versus Swerve, which I think I was the highest guy in the world on. I loved that match. It's just been an A1 rollout, and like now they're look. I've been looking for a tag team to be presented like the Road Warriors for about 20 years of my life. It's never quite taken off. Maybe there's potential in that. In this
the Hurt Syndicate, despite not anybody else joining yet, we're initially on a recruitment drive, and it feels like the card that was torn up for Ricochet might be sellotaped back together the way he keeps going. Who knows what became of Mercedes Moné's recruitment card? Like, again, somebody else that would be awesome in that stable. Maybe even a Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, because it was very much slipping into that card that seemed the beginning of the end of the Acclaimed, which we've just seen on Collision. And to speak to those little details and sort of other elements of the Dynamite that this tag title match featured on, I think I will only speak for myself, but we're in a culture where we offer you takes, and then in the comments below you offer just as many takes, and it's takes. I think that I was certainly guilty of, as AEW was ultimately slid creatively somewhat over the last couple of years, turning every criticism into a bit of a state of AEW address. And what I'm trying to do to kind of redress that balance is also do that in a positive way. And I think this tag title change and the nature of it is more than just a really impressive tag title change. I think you can look at the sort of the bigger picture. If you zoom out just of that individual match and you look at the other positives from last night's Dynamite, the white hot opening with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay doing truss falls. You having that? Because he climbed up a truss. And setting up that huge... Yeah, indeed. Setting up that huge tag match for Grand Slam. Basically, most things on that show that weren't the main event, the kind of the widely accepted failing Death Riders project, this to me feels like a sign that like there is still absolutely life in the old dog yet when it comes to All Elite Wrestling, and to maybe look at the bigger picture as, wow, okay, acknowledging an act that isn't working, making a change with one that is. Like, this feels like a direct like problem addressed, solution discovered, solve the problem bit of booking. And when whoever is backstage doing that, no matter how many people, whether it's Tony Khan or the various people that work for him, whoever is credited deserves the credit with that. It just says to me that like the sky isn't falling creatively necessarily within All Elite Wrestling. I think 2025 has already shown signs of life like I say, almost everywhere on the card. It's very easy to get consumed by the main event story because it is the main event story. It's the same way that, like, if everything in WWE was rubbish, but when Brock Lesnar was drawing, you'd be like, well, look, their top star and champion is a big deal, so something worked. The main event does have to drive everything, and as a result, I think it continues to drive a lot of negativity around AEW. But look elsewhere, and I think this is the best example of a number of seeds that are starting to sprout within the company. It does. It makes me feel positive about the product on a night like the Hurt Syndicate winning the tag titles, when you also have like other signs of life elsewhere on the card. Like, a good feeling was back in the building last night.
And if the proof is in the pudding in this case is the main event angle, right? Like, just listen to the crowd reactions and compare that to the Hurt Syndicate and to the Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Don Callis, Monster Army opening segment.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear what's working in AEW at the moment, and you can only hope that they pivot away from the stuff that is not. But thanks for joining us for this instant reaction. Michael will be back later on with a Dynamite review over on our podcast channel. Simon Miller will be here with Ups and Downs if you're looking for more reaction content. And if you enjoyed this video, hey, look, it's Royal Rumble season. Here's a video all about that for your enjoyment as well. See you later.